3 years in a row, Kenjaku has ended the year with a major dub. 3 years ago, it was him sealing Gojo. The year before that, it was him obviously getting the dub against Shibuya and taking in Curse Mahito. And now to end the year, he has gone and taken Tengen, and we're about to see the worst case scenario. Now this chapter has completely changed the scope of Jujutsu Kaisen because there's a lot of things that have begun big revelations in terms of Yuji's lineage, in terms of Kenjaku and the expansion on the power system, Choso and his development, and then Yuki's last stand. But to start off the chapter, and those who are aware of my content, I've been pushing the Yuki will survive, so a quick 10 seconds for my fallen soldier Yuki, until I obviously cope for the rest of the chapter. So
I am in no more. This today is one of the worst days.
But anyway, it's amazing chapter. There's some things I will talk about in regard to the whole thing. I will be giving my initial reactionary opinion, as well as how I think this can change and scope for the rest of the chapter to come. So first, let's talk about the biggest thing we see a lot of people be upset by, and I was initially upset with, and that is potentially Yuki's passing. So this is going to be the most logical talk part where I say why Yuki is dead, and then I'm going to cope a little later and say why I think Yuki might not be dead. But first, her final stand being a black hole technique that not only is strong enough to destroy the whole Tengen barrier, but can destroy the entire world. This being what we can assume is a maximum technique. And well, we saw Kenjaku manage to survive, but I feel the magnitude of a technique of that is pretty crazy, and it has shifted the whole power scaling to a whole new level with people such as, well, Yuki being planetary. Taking that to a step further, we can see that how Yuki and her nice little dialogue was with Choso. I think it was some of the most nice moments, and we really got to see some of my favorite characterization with Choso, who has really accepted his consequences, and we'll eventually get to see his character direction where he begins to make peace with the decisions he's made and how he has reflected on the mistakes he had did in terms of why his brothers has passed away. I think Yuki, even though what it looks like to be a very brief moment in her character, has showcased a lot of great stuff to us, whether that was her relationship with somebody such as Choso, whether her ideologies, or even her strength. In this very short period, she's showcasing a lot of great stuff, and I've really been a big fan of her character, and personally I am sad to see her go. However, it comes down to Gege subverting our expectations as well. If you ask me, and I'm not a betting man, but if you ask me, especially with how confident I was that Yuki would survive, I promise you I would have put my house on it that Yuki was surviving and Choso was dying. So it's good that I did not bet that because I would be homeless. But I mean, it just goes to show that Gege, you never know what he will showcase us. It's very unpredictable, and I was so shocked. I remember reading the leaks, seeing that Yuki had died, and it's looking very likely that Yuki had passed away. So now, hear me out and let me cope. I've already given the most honest perspective with the fact that she's dead and she has done her final stand, and to briefly talk about it before I go and cope, I think there's a lot of good direction that can go with her character. Whether that is characterization through flashbacks to really get an ideology into what made her want to remove Curse energy, or maybe the exploration of things such as the star plasma vessels and how it came to Tengen and his creation and what made him get to that root of immortality. Taking it to a step further, we could potentially see somebody inherit her will, who currently I wouldn't know who that would be. Maybe Choso, maybe Todo gets something in the past that he needs to do. But regardless, I feel as if the potential of inheriting her will and taking it to a step further to try and remove Curse energy could still be done, and it could tie into other characters such as Maki and Toji, this current story. And now, I'm going to cope. And this is going to be extreme levels of cope, and if you want to skip the cope, no, you know what? You're going to have to listen to me cope. I don't care. First, we did not get any backstory, didn't see her death body, or even see Garuda. Now, in terms of the fights and in terms of deaths in general, Gege has been very clear cut in terms of how he does them, in terms of, for example, when Nobara, and now I guess this doesn't look good for my agenda of Nobara coming back, but when Nobara had died, we got a nice flashback looking back onto her life. When Yaga died, we got a nice flashback detailing with him. When Mekamaru died, we got little monologues in terms of him and his character story, and gave us a full circle of his whole character arc, till we saw him back as well, Robot Mekamaru, where he went and finished his talks and helped out main cast in Shibuya. And then even when we got people such as Geto, his whole full circle of his character arc had been done, and we got to flesh out him as a character. So there is potential she could come back. And there's also a great theory I saw on Twitter, which I will showcase now, in which we saw that potentially using the black hole causes a time distortion, which could indicate maybe the period of time has gone quicker, and people made comparisons with the fact that they invaded at the nighttime and it's now daytime, unless the fight has taken over that period. So maybe there is something in store with that, and the fact that we obviously did not see Yuki's dead body, which, I mean, if we take it in the literal sense, it's most likely her body was the black hole which got exploded, but there's the potential maybe Garuda was what she put the mass on and then eventually using the black hole. To add to more copium, she seemed to have a plan with Tengen. Tengen went and first took away Choso to make him survive, and then Tengen came and wanted to distract Kenjaku so Yuki could then use her final Yamamoto moment where she grabs onto his leg and does the whole black hole. So there is a potential she could come back, even though it's very unlikely, and if you know the Neymar meme, it's 1% chance, 99% faith. That is. But obviously on the realistic approach, it's very unlikely that she's alive. However, as the captain of the Team Yuki coping squad, if you want to join the cope agenda, make sure to drop it down in the comments and continue to see potentially Yuki will come back in the future. But yes, I understand people's response in being disappointed that Yuki died. I for one was initially disappointed because I do believe I expected more of her character, especially seeing how she had interesting ideologies and things to come. However, like I said, this comes down to Gege subverting our expectations and doing things that we do not expect, and especially in the end of the world situation, having somebody of this huge significance die really ups the stakes for the rest of the final arc. Now, even though I don't necessarily agree with it, because I believe you can still have stakes without having to kill somebody who was built up from a long period and could have had potential to be more important in the story, I still can see Gege's route. And I think this chapter will change my perspective as the coming chapters come and see how it ties into the full story. Seeing how our main cast reacts to the fact that Yuki has passed away, seeing how the merger plan goes, the potential of a backstory, and things such as potentially maybe her will gets inherited, all these things can change my perspective on my initial reaction with the fact that I was a little disappointed that Yuki died. However, I am not the mangaka, and if this is the route that Gege has gone with, I'm excited to see how it does for the rest of the series. And now we get to some of my favorite moments, and that was Choso's characterization, which was done beautiful. So Choso is a great character, and listen, if you were on the team Choso is surviving, well done, man, you guys pulled through. Listen, I don't know how Choso has survived Gojo and Kenjaku, but this is one lucky boy. And listen, his whole acceptance of saying that he was at fault for the lives of his brothers and why they went the route that they did was beautiful. I think it's actually very intriguing because I understand, listen, even though Choso, you're my boy, your brothers were some ugly ass people, and I can understand why you were scared to see them obviously interact with other humans. For the simple fact that they don't look human. I mean, one of them looks like a male stripper, the other one looks like I don't even know what it is. So, I mean, in terms of that being accepted would be harder, but he took what he thought was the easier route, and I think Gege really did wonders for Choso's character. Him obviously crying and opening up with the whole situation. Tengen being a bartender while they're in their situation drinking drinks. Tengen, don't think you forgot that this is all your fault in the first place. But I mean, it was nicely done. And I thought it was great to see a real build up on Choso's character. And now from a person like myself who thought maybe there wasn't much for Choso right now, it could really seem that there is a big things to come with his character in the future and the potential that he's been cursed by somebody such as Yuki. Her closing comments of "you die as a curse, now live as a human" was beautiful, and it could give us a potential of something that could happen with a potential power up or changing his character persona in the future, which I'm very excited to see, and I think Gege was cooking with that whole monologue between them. And now with Kenjaku, like I have been saying, Kenjaku is him. I mean, he is not only built different, man survived and tanked a black hole and only lost a shirt. Alright, this is where my second kind of disappointment with the chapter comes, and this is where we get that whole situation where he uses obviously the anti-gravity to tank the black hole. I have no issue with technique reversal being the technique that he used. However, I would have personally liked to see what it was that he did, because then I would have more understanding instead of theorizing on the potential of what is done. So the way I have seen this, and this can go through first, the fan book has talked about the body can be used as a domain. So my understanding is that he used the anti-gravity within his body as a barrier to then maximize the effects of what you would get from a domain to cancel out the effect of a black hole. Now, this is just headcanon, and that's why I would have preferred to have seen it, and then we got the exposition, because currently I don't know what it is that he actually did, and it's only been told to me. However, this could be something that gets explored upon in the future, and that's why I talked about the potential of exploring stuff in the future in the power system. So a good example is we have, for the whole time when we saw Sukuna's domain, talk about it being barrierless. And now we got the new information when Kenjaku used it, and with the dialogue with Tengen, that it's actually an open domain and that there is still a barrier. So maybe this could be something that is going to be foreshadowed in the future, and it gives us a good indication to the power system becoming more expanded upon. And it's why I've been saying people such as Kenjaku and Sukuna always give us new revelations in regard to the power system and how much you can really do with it. I feel as if people saying it was convenient that it was a technique that can take away Ko, I felt that this was established already. Yuki's technique was conveniently countering curse spirit manipulation. Yuki obviously acknowledged that Kenjaku's gravity is something that is a big problem for her technique of mass. Now I understand, and my main beef is the fact that we didn't get to see it, and then that main part was off screen. I still think that this is something that makes sense and has been showcased in the power system in general, and it goes down to even Megumi and Regi's fight when Regi said a sorcerer is a con artist. Just because a character makes an assumption about something does not mean it's true, and it gives us an indication that revealing your cards and having more information is the best way to outsmart other people and to become an even top tier Jujutsu sorcerer. So I think all that stuff, and then I mean Kenjaku, why have I been pushing that he is the current strongest combatant that is a Sukuna or Gojo? I mean, it's for reasons like this. His curse energy control, his ability of Jujutsu, and everything that can now come with regard to his whole technique, with what we assume is that everybody he inhabits, he can get their technique, with the fact that Yuji's mom was the one with anti-gravity systems. It really gives us a whole thing of how deep his bag really is. I mean, he showed us a curse technique reversal, reverse curse technique, an open domain, his usage of even curse spirit manipulation, his uses of gravity. He has the full capabilities in terms of Jujutsu, and it really showcases to us as our current group of students are so ignorant to how strong you can really become. And this moves nicely to my boy YUji, because if you have not been on the YUji potential side, you can't switch now because it's too late for all of you. I've been pushing, don't sleep on my boy YUji, and I think this has done great for his potential and him to eventually get to a higher level. First, we get information that his mom was a sorcerer and had a curse technique, which could indicate to us potentially a little bit more in why somebody such as Kenjaku wanted to get his body. Maybe this goes nicely with the Ainu assassination theories that people said that his family comes from that family lineage or whatnot, which I should post a picture now so you can get some more information on what I'm talking about. And it gives us an indication to even his grandpa, who warned his dad, or was trying to warn his dad, about the death of his mom. So now Yuji's lineage has given us a whole new boost, and I think as if don't sleep on my boy Yuji's potential, because one day when he gets Sukuna's curse techniques, we will be eating. But taking it to a step further, I think it's interesting because it gives us a new kind of information to why potentially Kenjaku wanted to get her body, and to obviously do what he did with Yuji's dad, because maybe Yuji's dad has a curse technique as well, or maybe his grandpa was somebody heavily involved in Jujutsu society in general. In total, I think it's done wonders for Yuji and his lineage, and the intrigue for the potential of a backstory on his family is very, very exciting. It could really take Yuji to a whole new level, especially if he gets that information. But in tandem with something such as his whole thing with Choso and killing his brothers, maybe it could change the potential of Yuji and his psyche with the factor of how he has to deal with the fact that he killed those two people, and the conversation with somebody such as Nobara where they talked about how they had to accept that this would be their punishment of what they did, really gets a whole new meaning. Now that and potential with him and Choso meeting up again, I think it does a lot of wonders for their characters, and I'm excited to see the direction that Gege goes. But why I said this is the biggest chapter and it's changed everything, the stakes have risen to the highest that has been even more than before. No special grade is safe, and it really goes and hits hard with the fact that we're back to Jujutsu Kaisen where anybody can die. A lot of people were talking about the fact that our main cast were getting too many W's. Well, you got your wish. No more W's. There is no more W's. And the funniest thing about that argument for me is that they were getting W's, which was obviously perfectly aligning with Kenjaku's plan to fulfill the whole goal of the culling game. But nevertheless, I mean, now Kenjaku is one step closer to his merger plan, and I think the potential of what can happen is going to be great, because we can see a potential backstory between Kenjaku and Tengen, and it goes back to when they began their first plan together. It could also align nicely with my potential theory that they had a master-student relationship, but Kenjaku calling him his friend could mean that there could be something even more personal, and I think the potential for it is pretty high. We also got things such as Tengen with her obviously now initial body, because what we got from the things that they said in 136, he was using the barriers to make themselves available, with the fact that they had been able to evolve and become their consciousness as one with everything. So I feel as if that has begun to expand on that, and potentially when we get the next chapters will be expanded upon even more. But even to take it to a step further, you see the similarities between the domain with the tree type figure, and obviously Tengen being involved in what looks like something like female genitals as well. And it could go nicely with obviously Kenjaku's domain becoming womb perfusion. Why I think this chapter is great is put us in the dark. There were periods where I thought that I was being able to predict stuff in what was coming next in Jujutsu Kaisen, and Gege has completely flipped it and subverted the expectations, and the potential of what can come is pretty high. And overall, I think this chapter will do wonders when it has been aged, and I'm excited to see the direction we go, because I think the more time we go, the bigger significance this chapter will have in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, Gege is cooking. I do have my potential things that I'm a little upset about, which I have obviously talked about. Let me cope in the potential that Yuki may be alive, but it's looking very unlikely. And what do you think about potentially Yuki's death and potential of what can come next in the series? I think right now this was a bombshell to drop before the end of the year. In every end of the year chapter, Gege cooks something crazy for us to then locate and talk about, and I'm excited to see the direction that Jujutsu Kaisen goes. So now I'll do a brief predictions, because like I said, I have no idea where the series is going, and I think this is a great time, because that is where I love JJK the most, because it keeps it unpredictable and shocking when we get new reveals. I do believe potentially we may, and listen, I know in the previous time when we saw Sukuna say he's the fallen angel, that it was a potential we would see a backstory. I do think this is a great time to see the backstory, and to potentially see when Kenjaku begin to start his initial planning and what changed between him and Tengen. Another good thing that we got to see is when Kenjaku talked about Tengen and Sukuna having similar shape of bodies, and it goes nicely with a lot of people's theories. I know Kaio talked about it, with the fact that people can become evolved humans, and the similarities between them and the shaping up of going from human to something that is curse-like or something that has been ascended. It gives us a nice indication of things to come, and I'm excited to see what goes on in Jujutsu Kaisen in the future. And thank you guys for watching, and make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe.